Alright guys, that's Chatterbox Reviews. Come to you guys my review for the new series, Sweetpea. Alright, so the finale for the series just premiered earlier tonight, at least in North America. I heard that the whole series actually has been out for about a month now, right? Like the actual release date where we got the first episode in North America here. I think all of the episodes dropped on Sky Atlantic, I think it is, there in Britain, so... some people maybe have already seen the whole thing. Maybe they watched it the night it came out, or within a couple days they came out. But at least in North America, we have been week to week with the 6 episodes, and I've been watching pretty much every week. I think I caught up on the first 2, and then every single week since for the last month or so, I've been watching it as it comes out. So we're finally here. I didn't get anything spoiled, thankfully, even though I guess maybe it was out before. But so that's definitely a good thing. But yeah, we're here. The series is now over, or at least the first series. I'll definitely talk about a season 2 possibility and the finale and all that stuff later on. But of course, this is just talking about the first series for now, as we see it, as this kind of complete story, and then hopefully, of course, we'll see more of it. But love to hear your guys' thoughts on this one. Like I said, if you already watched it like almost a month ago now and watched the whole thing at once, love to hear your experience of that. And if you are just in North America, did you just watched it as I did just the last night or the last few weeks? Obviously, like hear that experience, and what'd you think of it? Did you like it? Did you not like it? I'm seeing a lot of positive buzz on this one, so even if you disagree, though, even if you didn't like it, I'd still love to hear from you in the comments below for sure. And if you guys enjoy this review, please leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel as well. Would really appreciate that. So we'll get into my thoughts here on the series, and like I said, towards the end I'll talk about a season 2. Obviously, if you haven't seen the series, I don't plan on going into plot details and stuff like that, but certainly I will be getting into spoilers, and when we get to the finale talk, I'll be talking about what happens in the finale. So yeah, be warned, if you haven't seen it yet, or if you haven't finished it all the way through, maybe do that and then come back here once you have. Okay, so this series, for those who are unaware, or maybe just some more details here, but it is created by Kirsty Swain, and it's based off the book, right, by C.J. Skews. And it's a book series, I believe, or at least that's what I've read now. So this one is based off the first book called Sweetpea, I believe, and then it kind of spurred this whole book series now of the character of Rhiannon Lewis as Sweetpea. And I have heard, though, from some people that, specifically, I read one review that was kind of really critical of this series because it departed so much from the book. And so I can't comment on that. I haven't read the book. I hadn't even heard of it before the show. So if you have read the book, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, because I have heard, yeah, it does depart pretty far from the actual book itself. But at the end of the day, it is based off that. Certainly the character and just kind of the concept of the show is based off that book there. So the series follows Rhiannon, who has spent her life being walked all over, right, by those around her, and this kind of wallflower type, which has been used in the synopsis, I believe, and I really like that description of it. This kind of, wallflower really means it's kind of like literally like the wallflower, right, that grows on the wall and just is kind of stays there and just grows up on the wall and doesn't kind of flourish out or anything like that. And so it's kind of, also being used for a way to describe somebody or somebody's behavior in that, they're at a party or a social gathering and they're kind of stuck to the wall, right, in their own world, and they don't really want to socialize with people, and they're kind of a little awkward in that sense, right? Introverted. And so I really like that. And so she is kind of this wallflower type, and she's been walked all over by those around her. And she finally begins standing up for herself after her father passes away in the first episode. But of course, the way she stands up for herself is all the wrong ways, right, to go about something like that, including murder. So, yeah, definitely that's kind of where we go with this one, but just a fascinating one, and obviously I want to start off by talking about Ella Purnell, because she's the main reason I checked this out. Obviously, I heard good buzz about it, but Ella Purnell has been somebody, ever since Yellow Jacket Season 1, for me at least. I know she was probably in some other stuff before that, especially for British audiences, but for me, North American viewer, that was the first time I think I saw her in anything. And she's so good in Yellow Jackets season 1. Like, that character was probably my favorite character of the show. I don't want to spoil too much, but I don't know. Okay, I'm not going to spoil anything, but really loved her in season 1. Wasn't a big fan of where they took the character at the end of season 1, we'll say, but big fan of what she did there. And then, of course, Fallout, right? An amazing year for her, having Fallout and now this. And she was amazing in Fallout. Like, again, I'm going to say here, the perfect casting for this character, also the perfect casting for Fallout. And you saw exactly that kind of side of her in Yellow Jackets, which I think was perfect for that character of Jackie. So, yeah, I mean, she is just so great and so unique, right? Like, literally just in her physical appearance, her face is just, she just has a very unique look, obviously, and they kind of really accentuate that in this series, too. So she physically has a unique look, and then her ability, at her acting ability, I think is just on another level. So, really great year for her this year, obviously, great in Yellow Jackets as well, and like I said, perfect for this role. I don't know, I'm sure there are some other actresses that could have done this, but I really want to give her credit because I don't think a lot of other actresses could pull this off the way that she did it. So perfectly captures the wallflower type as I just described and kind of the innocence, right, of this character. Even though she's doing these sinister things that we witness, we perfectly understand why every other character around her, every other person would, not see this, right? Would not ever expect her to do something like this. And it kind of, the whole story really hinges on that fact. And you totally believe it through her performance. And again, just the casting of her here and her physical appearance, obviously her being short and, kind of, petite, right? That all, comes into it. She's killing these like men that are a lot bigger than her, right? In the show, in the story. So yeah, just perfectly captures the awkwardness a little bit and the kind of the social, stuff, and then the innocence of just her look and her personality and the way she plays this character. And like I said, I don't think a lot of other actresses could pull this off without us turning, off of her, right? Or turning us off from this character and just being like, oh, well, like, she just murdered people. Like, why do we care about her? Why do we want to keep watching this character? But she captures the innocence and all that stuff, but she also captures this kind of, dark side to her really well also, in that you kind of, in a way, and they really pose this, and I'll get to this in the kind of my discussion of it, but they really do pose this thing of, you're kind of rooting for her, right? To kind of get back at her childhood bully and all this stuff. So I don't know, there's just so many layers to this performance, and I think she just captures every single one of them just really, really well. So, really got to give her a lot of credit. And I do think, what is it, Callum Worthy? I think that's his name there. I think so. I probably should have looked it up, I guess, but I think that's his name, who plays AJ. I thought he was great. And then I also want to shout out Norman, right? Her boss at the newspaper. I thought he was great. Kind of the comedic relief, kind of this, bumbling idiot or kind of fool character. But he was just so good. And I did like it, though. Like, it, at the very beginning, he almost did seem just like an asshole, right? But then, you see the other kind of side of him that he has that kind of comedic relief, right? Side to him a little bit. And he is kind of funny, provides a lot of the kind of laughs, I would say, in that, newspaper setting. And the whole storyline with that. So I thought that actor did a great job as well. And some other good ones. Is it Nicole Leckie, I want to say, plays Julia. I thought she was good as well. She doesn't really get to shine until later in the series, but I thought she was good in that role as well. So I want to talk about the style for this show because, immediately watching the first episode, I really, got the vibe kind of that they were going for. And I think that's a really great, compliment for the show and that they achieved that. And I will say for most of the series, I thought it was a great use of the style. I think, and I'll get to this as kind of my big criticism, one of my only criticisms really, because I really did enjoy the series. But yeah, part of the series towards the end of it, I would say the style kind of fades a little bit, unfortunately. But at least in the first few episodes, I really got the Killing Eve vibe here, right? I think, maybe they weren't, intentionally going for that, but that is something I definitely picked up on right away. And a really interesting connection here that I want to make, because of course Phoebe Waller-Bridge is the one behind Killing Eve, adapting, the novel for the first season, and then she kind of handed off the reins to Emerald Fennell for the second season, and then they just kept going, I think, with that for the rest of the seasons there. And I actually never finished Killing Eve. I haven't heard great things about the last couple seasons, but I did watch the first, I think, 2 or 3 seasons, a little bit of season 3. And I mean, season 1 of Killing Eve is really great. Really love that. And so anyway, so Phoebe Waller-Bridge is the one behind Killing Eve season 1 and adapting it. And it's actually her sister, Isabel Waller-Bridge, I believe, who composes the theme for the intro credits for this series. So I thought that was an interesting little parallel, right? With having, both of them involved. And yeah, I mean, certainly you get the style there. Villanelle, in some ways, is similar character to Rhiannon, has kind of this innocent exterior, right, that most people wouldn't expect. And she does kind of, put on accents and play this kind of innocent character, while meanwhile she's a serial killer, and an assassin, right? And she's killing all these people. So similar vibe there. And then obviously, just the use of color, just kind of the playful kind of comedic vibe to the sinister act of murder and killing is certainly, seen in both shows here with Killing Eve and Sweetpea. And like I said, I think season 1 of Killing Eve, I mean, season 2 is great as well, but specifically season 1 of Killing Eve, I think is one of the best seasons of television we've got in the last, 5, maybe, more than that, maybe a decade even. I can't remember exactly when it aired now, but yeah, it was really great. So really great compliment. I also picked up on Promising Young Woman a little bit, the film with Carey Mulligan that got nominated for the Oscars a couple of years ago. And that was also Emerald Fennell, I believe, right? And then she was involved with Killing Eve. So you see the parallels here a little bit. And obviously all this is British, right? The British overlap as well. And so yeah, that film a little bit less so, about kind of the innocence of this main character, right? But a little bit in that vibe of kind of like the comedic, a little bit of that playfulness, right, in, murder and kind of tracking down the men that wronged her or that, are bad for society, and her taking them out, right? So it's kind of that similar tone. And then I also got a little bit of Taxi Driver, and I think this may be a little far-fetched, but I do think, especially in the way that they confront some of these questions and these moral questions about, and the whole wallflower type, right? I think that fits the Taxi Driver, Robert De Niro's character there, and his social awkwardness and his kind of, inability to connect and to be seen and to relate to people. And I think you kind of see the parallel there with Rhiannon, and of course, what she does, to get noticed or to, as a response to this, is kind of similar in the way that Taxi Driver goes. So, yeah, I think all of those are elements that they were kind of drawing on here that I see, inspiration from. And just everything that went into this, the directing, the writing, cinematography, especially for those first few episodes, like, every scene was just like dark and rainy, but they really captured like these kind of pink neon, notes as well with the cinematography a lot, with the headlights in that first episode when she's on the road and her dog dies. I thought that was just really well shot. So, and of course the score and like even just the intro credits, right? Just from the start of that, the title cards for each episode when it comes up in pink font and it's kind of this playful font, right? So everything with the show, all contributing to that style, and that's something Killing Eve did so well, and I think the show does it almost just as well. Like I said, I think stuff like the directing and the cinematography kind of fell off a little bit later in the series, but just overall, really great vibes for this one. So thought it was also a good balance of tone in this one. To me, as a North American viewer, it wasn't hilarious. And I have picked up on the fact that I don't always get the British humor, and so that could be British audiences may have found some of this stuff hilarious. I don't always completely get it, but to me, I still thought it was really some great moments of comedy and kind of levity. Like I said, the character of Norman, I think, is just a great kind of comedic character, right? To have that side of him there. And just some other moments. I mean, even like Jeff getting hit by the garbage truck, was it? Or the bus? That was just one of the best moments of the series for sure. In that kind of dark comedy, I thought that they really nailed that. So a good balance of that tone, having those comedic moments throughout. Again, nothing, hilarious, laugh out loud, funny to me, but I definitely got, the comedic moments there, and I thought some of them were really strong. And then also capturing kind of the eeriness, the horror elements a little bit, right, in the way they shot those murder scenes, and that, or even like her holding Julia in the garage, right? And they kind of, again, it's a dark comedy, so they kind of play up some of those elements to make it kind of scarier or eerie, right? Raise the tension a little bit. And of course the dramatic moments, right? I thought, some emotional moments here, dealing with trauma and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I thought this was just a really great kind of balance of that tone, where we had the comedic moments, we had the moments of levity, and then it mixed really well with the drama and kind of the horror and all that stuff. So yeah, really great balance of tone there. Okay, so it's been very positive so far, so I do want to get to my biggest criticism, and it's one of my only criticisms really with the series, and that's that episode 4 and 5. Kind of lost the plot for me a little bit. And what I mean by this is, I think the style of the first 2 to 3 episodes faded a bit and focused less on kind of Rhiannon's mental state and her actions, right? In the way those first few episodes played out, it was almost seeming like she was going to kill somebody, each episode. And then, we had to deal with that. What is that, what impact does that have on Rhiannon's mental state, and is she going to kill again? And so it kind of set up this sequence there. And then in episode 4 and 5, it became more about this, Julia missing story, right? And what she was going to do with Julia. And episode 5, I wasn't a huge fan of. It was kind of, going at these, twists a little bit too much and trying to kind of, it kind of became like a mystery crime show, a little bit. And it's fine, but I've seen it done better, and it was just kind of a little too familiar. Whereas, the first few episodes and that kind of tone that they were going for was really unique, right? It's something like Killing Eve where it stands out because it's so unique and so fascinating to watch something like this. And episode 4 and 5, like I said, just kind of fell, and parts of 6 as well, but just kind of felt like, okay, like this is a little more familiar. This is a little more, in the vein of some stuff I've seen and seen it done a little bit better, right? In other shows that primarily focus, of course, on the mystery side of things and the crime and police investigations and all this stuff, right? So that would be my only, kind of criticism there. After the first 3 episodes, I was so into this, like so all the way in to this, and then 4 and 5 kind of disappointed me. I was a big fan of the finale. I think, largely, a couple nitpicks and stuff, but largely, especially the ending, I really did like, establishing that again, the ending really hammering it home. Without that, I think it would have just felt, a little bit too, like she's moving on and things are just kind of tidied up a little bit too much, of course. But I did have some faith. I knew that they would throw a twist at us at the end. Again, very similar to Killing Eve. I mean, the twist at the end of the finale of Killing Eve Season 1 is perfect. I mean, how good was that twist? I did not see that coming at all when I was watching it. And this is actually kind of a similar thing. So, the comparisons never end between the two, at least for me. But, so it'd be my only criticism. It's just the consistency throughout. And I did notice as well that, was it Kirsty Swain, the creator, only wrote, or at least only has writing credits on the first 3 episodes. And I do think you notice a little bit of a dip there, or a little bit of at least a difference in the writing, in the approach there. And so I'm sure maybe that could be it, that she doesn't, has direct involvement in those last few episodes. And so that maybe could be what it was. And even just in the cinematography, like I said, those first couple episodes, it seems like it's always raining, it's always at night, and they're always capturing the lights, and like I said, really great stuff. And I just don't really remember any of that in the back half of the series. We kind of faded from that. I didn't capture that same style and same look as well. So yeah, I do wish, it was a little more consistent. And to be honest, I think it may have been a little better, and this is where I heard that it departs from the book a lot, but I think it may have been a little better maybe if they just kind of stuck with that episode to episode and exploring Rhiannon's, mental state and her actions. And maybe the Julia thing is wrapped up, within an episode or something like that. Or she just lets her go and we don't have the whole twist with Marcus and all that stuff. But again, if they have a season 2, though, it does make sense to do this kind of thing. And then maybe we'll go more into the, mental state and the moral dilemma and all that stuff within another season. So it just kind of depends. If this is just a straight up miniseries, we don't see any more of it, I think this could be a bigger problem than it would be if we got a season 2 for sure. But anyways, that's just my thoughts there. Okay, so I want to get to this. I think this is maybe the biggest positive about the series because... And I want to talk about kind of the moral dilemma, right? And the questions that are raised here with the series. And for a dark comedy, man, I think this is really impressive. The way, and maybe this is also coming from the book too. I'm sure that the book, kind of raises these similar questions and maybe dives deeper into this. I'm not sure. But just some really interesting exploration of things. Like, again, these moral dilemmas and questions, being posed here. That, yeah, it's a dark comedy. There's some laughs to be had for sure. But the way that they're able to fit this within the story and actually make it really compelling and make you actually think, after almost every episode here, I was, sat there and actually thought about this. Is she right, about this? Or, all these kinds of questions. So I think the main question here is Rhiannon killing for the good of society? Or because it makes her feel alive and noticed, right? And I think you could actually maybe even say yes to both, right? I think in her mind, I think this is the biggest question, right? Is she right, for killing these people? Do these victims really deserve it, right? That's a question that's raised, multiple points in the show. And I think you could maybe say yes. I think in a way, that childhood trauma, of being bullied, all that time by Julia and these people in her childhood. And so now she thinks that she's sticking up for people, right, who have also been bullied. And she's killing these people who are bullies, right? But it's also the fact that, I think it's the end of the first episode, really great moment, where she screams into the mirror, right? And she's finally feels alive, right? She finally feels noticed. She stood up for herself for the first time, in her life. And it's by murdering this guy. And so it's that constant kind of thing back and forth of, yeah, is she killing bad people? Who were bullies and kind of, she's like a Batman almost, right? Like getting vengeance for people against, the criminals or against bad people. But it also serves her own personal, desires or needs at the same time. And so can that be true? Can both things be true? Can she be doing good, but it also serving her own purpose, right? Or because it's serving her own purpose, it can't be a good thing that she's doing. So just a fascinating kind of debate and questions here that are being posed. And again, do these victims really deserve it? Are they bad people? Do they deserve to be killed? Or do they deserve to be, punished in the same way that they punished other people? It's all this kind of this stuff, right? And that's kind of an age-old question, of course, bullies and that stuff. And an interesting part of it, too, is, Julia. I think that's a great example. She is the number one bully, but now she's, in an abusive relationship with Marcus. And so, and even her upbringing, I think she comments on that, right? And that's a reason why she bullied Rhiannon and why she was mean to her. And so, yeah, there's an explanation for things, and going into that a little bit more and figuring that out is probably worth it rather than just killing somebody, right? It's also about the kind of redemption, right? Are bad people just always bad, or can they be redeemed? That kind of thing. You're going into that as well. So just constant, holes that you can kind of go down here and really explore. Now, I think the finale really hammers home kind of the point of the show, and this is the point that I feel, right? Now, you can still get asked those questions and explore them, and like I said, I think you could really justify either side of those questions, but I think the finale really seals, to me at least, kind of what they think of Rhiannon and what the kind of, message of that character is. Is that, is she a monster, right? As, AJ says she is in that finale. And I think this is the closest to the truth, right? Is that she is a monster, right? She is a monster. She's not just doing this, for the good of society and all this stuff. It's because it also serves her purpose. And I think, under the surface here, I think there's also just psychological things either from the bullying or just, just in her the whole time that she's had this kind of inkling, right? To do, a violent thing or something like this, right? But I mean, that's under the surface. Could be, could not be. But after she kills AJ, right, in the finale, she stabs him, and all this, and what goes down there, right? The kind of twist at the very end. And AJ, right, is a genuinely good person. And the most important thing here, it's not just that he's a good person, but he's noticed her the whole time, right? Ever since they first met. He has noticed her and paid attention to her and been nice to her, shown her respect. And that's basically the only character in the entire series that did that from the very beginning to the very end of his character, right? Craig shows her respect and sees her, but not at the beginning, not at all at the beginning, right? Same with Julia, right? And I mean, in the finale, we kind of gather that she was just faking it, of course, and ran away with her bank account or her bank card or whatever, right? Which, kudos to Julia. I don't blame her at all for that. She's been through hell, right? But AJ's the only one who's shown this consistently the whole way through and has noticed her, and yet she still kills him, right? And so I think this is kind of the final test, if you will, for the character of Rhiannon, in that, okay, maybe you could say, the people that she killed up until that point were bad people, right? But in this case, you can't. You can't make that argument. You can't justify that because AJ has been a good person and noticed her the entire time, right? And so she does kill him, I think for two things, right? Obviously, the instant thing is just she fears that he's going to expose the truth about her, right, and get her caught for murder. Obviously, she just told him the truth. He knows that it was her murder weapon, so he can really destroy her, right, and really expose her, and get her, but the police probably pick her up very quickly if he went to them and told them. So obviously there's that, right? But it's also, I think mainly, the main reason that she did it is because he called her out on it. Because she knows deep down that that this is not all just for the good of society and that she's killing bad people. She knows deep down that this is serving her own personal desires and her needs, right? It's filling those holes in her life. And so she knows deep down that she is a monster, right? Or at least that she, is not just completely innocent and doing this for the good of society, right? There is something there deep in her that knows this is wrong and that she is, not doing the right thing, right? It's not morally right what she's doing. And the fact that him, of all people, who has been good to her, who has noticed her the whole time, even him, right, and even Julia, right, kind of lets her off the hook because, of course, she's being blackmailed and terrified of her at that point. She lets her off the hook and says, yeah, she's doing good enough she's doing good for society and she's not a monster. But AJ, right away, his instinct, as is probably, anyone's instinct, calls her a monster. And she can't possibly handle that, right? So it's almost this fear of, you don't want to let him leave the house because you think he's probably going to turn you into the police, but it's also the fact that this guy that you trusted, that has respected you the whole time, once he found out the truth, he calls her a monster, and she knows deep down, it kind of strikes this chord, and she can't help herself, just impulsive, and goes to stab him and kills him. So, I thought that really kind of sealed the deal here, and to the fact that she is a monster, and that AJ is probably correct here. But again, there's definitely a side to this where you could make the argument, or you could explore the fact that, she's doing good for society, and that she is just killing people who, maybe not deserve it, but are bad people, right? They're not good people that she's killing, just innocent people, that she's killing. But I think at the end of the day, she is the monster that AJ says she is. So, and then of course the massive, cliffhanger that her sister, which I thought was a great payoff because the whole series long almost, we've been hearing like she texts her that she's, wanting to sell the house, and she phones her, and then Rhiannon leaves her on red for a while, and it's like, okay, like, is the sister actually going to show up, or do we just keep hearing about her? And then for her to show up, of course, in the worst possible moment for Rhiannon, I think is the perfect payoff, for all of the things that they set up for the whole season up to that point. For her to show up, I think is just perfect in that place, and a perfect cliffhanger. And honestly, and now I guess we can talk about season 2. Will there be a season 2? I think yes. I'm not completely familiar. I tried to do some research into Sky Atlantic, and how they kind of do things with the renewal and stuff. So if you know anything more about that, maybe you can comment. But, because I wasn't able to find any ratings or anything like that, viewership and that kind of thing. But obviously the critics have, overwhelmingly praised this. It's got a really good positive reception. There are more books in the series that exist, and so maybe they could adapt those in future seasons. And, of course, the cliffhanger they ended on really doesn't seem like something that it would just be a mini-series and it would end there. It really does seem like there's more story to tell for sure. And now going back to that cliffhanger of her sister showing up, can she get out of this? And I think she can. I really do think she can. I think there's definitely more story to tell here. And it's mainly because it's a dark comedy, right? So that you can have stuff like, Jeff getting hit by the garbage truck or that bus, right? You can have moments like that where in a drama, you couldn't get away with something like that, right? Because it's like, what? That's just a massive plot hole. Like that character was just about to completely destroy them and they just died like that, right? You wouldn't really get away with that in a drama. But in this show, with a dark comedy and the tone that they, really do well throughout the whole rest of the show, that moment really lands, and it's perfect. It's perfect, right? To have that character, Jeff, die like that, just in one fell swoop. So stuff like that, and again, does she kill her sister next, right? I think that would maybe be a little too incriminating, but maybe does her sister help her? Does she threaten her sister, with a knife in that moment, doesn't let her leave, and so maybe she forces her sister to help her. There's just a lot of different, ways you could go, or that the sister gets distracted and she doesn't see her or something. There's just so many ways that you could go, I think, to justify more story to be told here. And obviously, there's lots of questions, lots of, like I just went over, moral questions here that you can still explore with Rhiannon. I don't think that they've completely tied the bow on her kind of mental state and what, exploring that character to the fullest extent. So I would really like to see a season 2. Again, I would really like them to stick to the style, though, and not get too carried away, not lose the plot. Like they did at times in this season, but I do think there's lots of potential there, and I do think it's going to happen. Again, I'm not completely familiar with Sky Atlantic and how they renew and their ratings and all that stuff, but I do think that there's a really great, chance that this gets a season 2, and I think Followed has just started filming, right? Ella Purnell has just started filming again on that, so obviously it would be a little bit, because she's got to finish filming that, and then probably, go to this for a season 2 if we get it. So yeah, in a year or so, we'll hopefully see this one. But yeah, so that'll just about do it for all my thoughts then on Sweetpea, on the series here. Series for now, but perhaps season 1 when we get word that another season is coming. Love to hear your guys' thoughts, as I said, off the top on this one. Any and all thoughts welcome, even if you hated it, you disagree with me, even if you loved it, and you do agree with a lot of stuff I said. Love to hear your guys' thoughts. So anyways, guys, stay tuned on the channel for more reviews coming up soon. What shows do we have coming up? Probably, The Franchise, want to do a review for that comedy on HBO. Yeah, there's a few other shows that are coming out in the next couple weeks that I'll definitely be doing more reviews for. So stay tuned if you're interested at all for that. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this one, and we'll see you then in my next review.
So say my name like I'm 10 feet tall. Throw your hand like I'm